What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. I'm very excited to be here with you all today, and Happy New Year. It is 2025. We made it, and hopefully you all took into account some of the things that we talked about in 2024 on your journey to becoming financially fit, and hopefully you're a lot more fitter than you were the year prior. The good news is we're going to get even more fitter this year. So as I always say, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Just like when you go to the gym, you'll see in the New Year's, everyone has their New Year goals. If you're going to the gyms, I'm sure that they're overpopulated. Everyone's like, I'm going to get fit in 2025. And well, here we are on the Financially Fit podcast, and we're going to get fit too. So hopefully that means that more people are joining our podcast and tuning in. If you're new, welcome. If you're a returner, thank you for continuing to rock with me here into the new year. And this year I want to take this podcast to new levels. So we're going to be very intentional on trying to have podcasts rolling out on a week-to-week basis. Obviously, life happens. Towards the end of last year, I had a lot of life changes happening from switching to a new job that from a company that I had founded and ran for 4 years and moving now into another CFO role and trying to get up to speed with what I need to do to help that company be successful, yet alone also moving into a brand new home. So it has been a very trying end of the year for me, but I'm very excited and blessed to have the ability to have a new job and to have a new home. So hopefully, maybe there's some people that are tuning into this podcast that are maybe thinking about buying a new home in 2025. I do think we're going to see those interest rates dropping over time. So it likely will. We will see the housing market heating up in 25. We'll see interest rates dropping, and hopefully there will be some life changes happening for you all as well. But without further ado, we're going to dive into our podcast today. So what we're talking about today is, anytime there's a new administration, so a new president comes in, there's some things that we like to keep a pulse on, and it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. That's not what we're here to discuss. What we're here to discuss is to be able to put you in the best position possible to understand the things that you should be monitoring as new administrations coming into form, and maybe some of the things that they're going to bring from a policy standpoint that may affect you from a consumer standpoint in your personal finances. So the first one that I really want to talk about is any tax policy changes. At the end of the day, taxes drive a lot of what we do on a day in and day out, a day in and day out as consumers. Whether that's purchasing something, whether that's preparing for filing our taxes, whether that is maybe you run a company and maybe you have an S corp or a partnership, or maybe you're a C corporation. The tax rates that reside with those respective uh, structures are going to be important. So, what I want to talk about as far as tax policy goes is we want to make sure that we're staying up to date with any tax reform that may happen, which could include rates from an individual standpoint. So I talked a little bit about how we believe those interest rates are going to continue to drop. We did see some drops towards the end of the year. Economists are saying they expect another 50 basis points here probably in Q1. And then by the end of 2025, they're expecting potentially even 100 basis points drop in interest rates, which is astronomical, right? That's a difference between a couple of $1,000s potentially. On a mortgage, it could be a difference of a couple $100s on purchasing a car. So we want to make sure that we're staying informed on that. And then also on the business side, last time President Trump took office, he did drop the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, which obviously is a 14% delta. And, that was astronomical for a lot of C corporations, which obviously helped with improved profits. It allowed corporations to be able to hire more. And so we could see that again here be a trend where we start to see employers start to hire more into the new year. So we want to make sure that we're staying up to date with our tax policies. As I mentioned on the last podcast, you can go to irs.gov, and that's where you'll find a lot of the updates that the IRS is going to be pushing out through his administration. The second one is our healthcare costs. So I talked a little bit about the unfortunate death of the CEO from United Healthcare, and I think that we're starting to see some pressure with those senior leaders that are in the insurance space to be able to deny less claims, right? Which is going to inevitably put some pressure on healthcare costs, whether good or bad, or favorable or unfavorable is what I'd like to say. So we want to make sure that we're understanding what those premiums are looking like. Most of you, if you're working for an employer, you probably have locked into what your healthcare costs are going to be going into the next year. Usually that happens around November time, but we want to stay attuned to what's happening. So we're preparing the months leading up to November of 2025 so we can best prepare ourselves from a healthcare standpoint to set our families up for success. The third one is interest rates. So I talked a little bit about this. The Feds are expecting some interest rate drops. I think that the housing market's going to heat up, which, obviously is going to drive down some of those mortgage expenses and potentially even car note expenses. What I will say about the housing market is typically whenever we see rates drop in the way that they have in the past, we start to see that housing market heat up and they're very competitive, which means that likely you're going to need more cash on hand to be able to put a bigger down payment because it's going to be a very competitive environment. The last time we were here when interest rates were really low was right around that 2019, 2020 time frame. And what we did see was there was people that were trying to purchase homes and they were literally purchasing homes without even seeing the home. So maybe they saw the home on Zillow or whatever platform they like to view their homes on, and they didn't even get a chance to go and visit the home because sellers were demanding best offer by this date because they had 10 offers on a home already. So I do expect to see some of that again, probably likely here in the spring, heating up until the summer and into the fall. So we typically see those things start to cool down a little bit in the wintertime, but I imagine those will happen throughout 2025, and we need to best prepare ourselves for that. So if you're thinking about buying a home, the best thing that you can do right now is start to find those liquid assets, keep those assets liquid, continue to build your emergency savings, continue to save for a down payment, and prepare yourself for what inevitably will probably be another housing war, unfortunately, to try to get your dream home. So the other things we want to talk about are regulations, any regulatory adjustments. So we want to pay attention to this because this could affect investment opportunities and consumer protections. So as I mentioned, President Trump will be coming in with his administration. There will inevitably be some regulatory changes. And we want to make sure that we understand how those are going to impact our investments and also any consumer protections that we might have today that we might not have in 2025, or even protections that may increase in 2025 that we don't have today. So let's stay attuned to that. Once again, irs.gov is where you likely can get any of the knowledge that you need on any regulatory things that might occur. Another place that I also like to look at whenever I'm looking for regulation changes is the Wall Street Journal does a really good job of staying up to date on any huge regulatory changes that may occur. We also see another place I like to read is called Barron's. Barron's is more on the business side, but typically any regulatory changes that will occur on the business side, Barron does a really good job of reporting that, and it's BARRON. The next one is Social Security and Medicare. So I expect some changes to Medicare. We don't know what's going to happen with Obamacare today, with the changes that are going to occur, but we want to stay attuned to what's going to happen with Obamacare, whether that goes away or whether there's changes to Obamacare. We expect that that could impact some of our Medicare uh, things as well. And there's been talks for, gosh, probably a decade now of Social Security going away. My purview, and I may be wrong, I'm not an economist, but I do keep my ear to the street. And I apologize if you hear my dog. As Shaletta always says, this is lifing. So if you hear my dog, I apologize, but this is my life. So um, Social Security, they've been saying for probably about a decade that they think it's going to go away. They don't think that there's enough money being pumped into it to be able to support the baby boomers as they are moving into retirement and Social Security, and they think that potentially we're going to exhaust our Social Security. My purview on it is that I believe that Social Security is one of the few things in our society that creates equity across, regardless of where you stand, whether you're middle class or low middle class or upper middle class or a part of the wealthiest individuals in this country. Social Security has been kind of that steady that everyone gets if you put money into Social Security as you're working, which all of us should be doing because it's a regulatory thing. Typically, you will be able to pull Social Security. So I don't believe that it's going to go away, but we do need to make sure that we are staying attuned to what's happening in the Social Security market. This is a big one, and I expect some big changes as far as trade policy goes. So, if you listen to President Trump talk at all, he's talked a lot about applying tariffs to international tariffs. So you think about China, where we get a lot of our goods from. He is expected to impose some pretty high tariffs, which obviously is going to make things a little bit more expensive to us U.S. citizens that are purchasing from international companies. So you can think about if you purchase German cars, so you can think about Volkswagen, some of those things. We can likely expect that they're going to be a little bit more expensive. The goal here is to hopefully start to manufacture more in the US and to have US companies thriving and us purchasing from US companies. I do envision that this is going to occur over time over these next 4 years, and we need to be prepared for that. So if you are a person that likes to buy more international things or goods, I should say, and rather than things, I would expect that it's going to cost a little bit more for us moving over these next 4 years. um, the next thing is our economic growth projections. So, you know, we need to stay attuned to administrative policies. Obviously, based on whatever policies are rolled out through the administration, this can either stimulate growth or it can hinder growth. So obviously, whether it stimulates or hinders growth, this is inevitably going to have impact on job security. It's going to have an impact on income levels. So we need to stay attuned to that and how the job security market and the unemployment market and also the income levels and any of those changes might affect our ability to have a strong purchasing power, or maybe we might have more purchasing power. Some of that is kind of in the gray area right now. We don't really know what's going to occur, but we need to stay attuned to that. Inflation trends. So we saw over the past 4 years under the Biden administration pretty high inflation the last couple of years, whether that was with rent, whether that was with groceries, whether that was gasoline. Uh, my hope for all of us is that those things continue to drive down. President Trump has promised that he will drive down food costs, grocery costs over the next 4 years. What we have seen as of recent, now that he has been the president-elect, is he's saying that it may be a little bit tougher than he expected to do that in the short term. So I expect that we will continue to see some of those high grocery prices over time, and we will see those hopefully start to trend down over the next 4 years. Uh, I mentioned kind of with the interest rates dropping that obviously that's going to stimulate the housing market, and with that, we may see some pressures on the rental prices. Hopefully, that drives rental prices down because more people likely will be in the housing market. But we'll stay tuned to what happens with inflation, and we will navigate as we can. And we'll discuss these things on the podcast throughout the year to make sure that we're best setting ourselves up for success. The next one is investment opportunities. So we need to look for potential shifts in the stock market and other investment areas. What we do know about President Trump is he is a businessman. So we had seen during his first tenure as a president, the stock market reaching kind of newer heights. We also saw that some of the times whenever he spoke on certain things and certain policies that he was putting in place, how volatile that made the stock market. So we need to be prepared for that volatility. If you're a baby boomer and you're edging towards that retirement, we know that most all baby boomers will be 65 plus by 2030. So obviously his presidency is going to run up until that 2029, 2030 timeframe. So we need to prepare ourselves. If you're someone that's considering retirement, you might want to start thinking about if you have investments into a lot of volatile stocks, maybe you want to move some to some bonds and because those typically tend to be safer investments. Now, obviously, they don't earn as much of a return as it would if you had it in the stock market. We also need to be stay attuned to what's happening at the international level. If you have stocks in international companies, based on what happens with these tariffs, we need to understand how that's affecting the growth at an international level, because we may need to also move some of those international stocks into maybe some bonds or maybe move some more into the U.S. market. So I would stay attuned to whatever you're doing in the investment side of things. Obviously, if you are a person that has 10, 20 more years of working, right now is the time to continue to ride that growth and continue to be aggressive with your stocks, obviously within your investment appetite, and make sure that we are capturing as much gain as we can. Because what we do know is that we have time on our hands, right? We know that the market will recover if it's down. We know that if the market is up, there will be some volatility where maybe it might turn and we might lose on some investments. But as I always say, you don't lose until you sell. So I would encourage you all to continue to ride that wave. And then the last one is any consumer protection laws. So we want to stay up to date on any changes to consumer protections, regulations that could impact credit, could impact lending, and debt collection practices. So we want to make sure we're staying attuned to that because your credit score is your power, right? I know that if you listen to Dave Ramsey, he talks a lot about how credit is not that important. You should pay for everything with cash or as much with cash as you can. What I always say is that's fine. You can certainly do that. You can certainly pay for things with cash, but it's nice to have that flexibility of having a good credit score in case you do need to leverage debt. So those are really the things that I would be staying attuned to into 2025. If you have questions, you can always DM me on our IG. It's Financially Fit AC. Other than that, let's continue to fight. Let's continue to grind. Let's continue to be maniacal every single day towards our goals because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So with that being said, the power is in the money, is not in how much money you make. The power is in how much money you keep. Let's continue to fight on, everyone. Look forward to continuing to build with you all in 2025. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Andre Creighton, and I will see you guys again on the Financially Fit Podcast. Take care.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.